Ladies and gentlemen, family and friends of the 2019 Cooper Term class, on behalf of the Board of Trustees and the faculty and staff, I welcome you to Nashville School of Law's 111 commencement exercises. All of us are delighted that you have joined us today to recognize and honor our students who are graduating. The degrees we are about to confer and the diplomas we are about to bestow are tangible rewards for the work and sacrifices of these students, as well as their families, friends, and employers throughout the students' years of study and attending class at night. All of us are appropriately proud of each member of the class of 2019. Throughout our long history, our school has been guided by visionary leaders. Our Board of Trustees are our leaders today, and we are indeed fortunate that our trustees have joined us this morning. It is my privilege to introduce to you the chairman of our board, the nationally and internationally renowned attorney and community leader, Aubrey Harwell, who will introduce his fellow board members.
I want to reiterate on behalf of the board the congratulations to this class. The board is incredibly proud of you all. We wish you great success, and we're delighted that you have walked this long road so successfully. We have most of our board members here today. Tom Cohn is the gentleman to my left. Tom's an incredibly successful businessman. He went to Vanderbilt Undergraduate School and got his degree from Nashville School of Law. He has become, and for years has been fundamentally the godfather of patron saint of this law school. He was the first chairman of the board we had. He led us very well. Then we've got John Rochford. John is a proud graduate of the School of Law. He graduated in 1974. He's the president and founder of a very successful real estate construction company. He builds custom homes, multi-family residential developments, retirement communities, and the list goes on and on and on. He left his fingerprints all over this community. He recently showed his devotion to our school by establishing the Rochford Financial Aid Fund in 2017 to try to assist first-year Nashville School of Law students financially. That's done very well. It's made a difference in the lives of many of you all. Then we've got the Honorable Frank Clement. Frank has been on our board since 1993, a member of the Court of Appeals since 2003. Before he was on the Court of Appeals, he was a judge on the Circuit Probate Court for the 20th Judicial District. He received his undergraduate degree from the University of Memphis, his law degree from the Nashville School of Law. We also have Judge Waverly Crenshaw, Chief Judge, U.S. District Court, Middle District, Tennessee. Judge Crenshaw had a conflict and could not be with you all, but he asked that we pass on his congratulations on the job well done. That's your board. Dean?
Our students and our school's success rest in the hands of the dedicated women and men of our faculty. Each of these distinguished lawyers and judges have accepted the challenge, some for many years, of using their knowledge, wisdom, and experience to prepare their students for successful and rewarding careers. You, members of the class of 2019, are the faculty's legacy to the profession. It has been their goal to pass along not just an assortment of legal principles and rules, but also their respect for the rule of law and for the noble profession you are about to enter. We are fortunate that many of them have joined us this morning, and I would appreciate each faculty member standing when I call his or her name, and to remain standing until all the faculty have been recognized. The Honorable Lynn Alexander, Mabel Arroyo, the Honorable Don Ash, Daniel Barexa, the Honorable David Bragg, Larry Bridge-Smith, Laura Chastain, the Honorable Angelina Blackshear Dalton, the Honorable Marshall Davidson, R. Eddie Davidson, the Honorable R. E. Lee Davies, George Dean, Harlan Dotson, the Honorable Steve Dozier, Scott Fielding, the Honorable Mark Fishburne, Patrick Froeg, General Glenn Funk, William L. Harbison, Andra Hedrick, Candy Henry, Henry Hildebrand, Trevor Howell, David Hudson, John Kitch, Honorable Carlton Lewis, John Lewis, Philip Miller, Jeff Mobley, Brian Neal, Diane Neal, Steve Perigo, Kimberly Reed Bracey, Chuck Schoenholtz, Michael Smallbone, Honorable Philip Smith, Clark Spoden, Wesley Turner, Mark Wesley, and Michelle Wojciechowski. Please give them a round of applause. Our students and faculty go about their work in an environment created and maintained by our dedicated, efficient, and experienced staff. The doors of the school would not open, the lights would not be on, and the business of the school would not be done without these dedicated men and women. This ceremony today is the result of their planning and hard work. To enable us to properly acknowledge their contributions, I would appreciate it if Stacy Angelo, Pete Cantrell, Heather Bright, Susan Doolin, Melvin Fain, Sharonda Green, Chip Loser, Beth McDonald, and Michelle Wojciechowski stand and be recognized. And I'm going to go off script for just a minute. This school has not a tradition of awarding honorary degrees. But if we did, I would be awarding an honorary degree today to Debbie Patterson, my wife. She is the reason why I'm at this school. And she has put up with late hours, early mornings, the vicissitudes of being the dean of a law school. And today is our 34th wedding anniversary. So I'm going to deal with it. Our graduation speaker this morning is Judge Amanda McClendon, who sits on Division II of the Circuit Court for Davidson County. We are truly fortunate that she accepted our invitation. When Nashville became a city of transplants, Judge McClendon is a native Nashvilleian. In fact, her Davidson County roots are deep and go back at least to 1803. Judge McClendon's educational foundation was constructed in Nashville's public schools. She received her baccalaureate degree in economics and history from Vanderbilt University and her law degree from the University of Tennessee College of Law. Judge McClendon practiced law in Nashville for 23 years before she ascended to the bench in September of 2006. She was actively involved in the civic life of our city. In 1999, she became only the second female attorney to serve on the Metropolitan Council when she was elected to represent the 16th district, which includes Antioch and Precinct. During her 7 years on the council, Judge McClendon served as vice chair and then chair of the Budget and Finance Committee, chair of the Public Works Committee, chair of the Federal Grants Committee, and vice chair of the Code, Fair, and Farmers Market Committee, and also the Parks, Library, Recreation, and Auditorium Committee. There is no part of Metro government that Judge McClendon has not touched. She remains active in many professional and civic organizations, including the Nashville and Tennessee Bar Associations, the National Bar Foundation, the Tennessee Judicial Foundation, the National Association for Women Judges, and the Harry Phillips American Indian Court. Last November, she was seen expertly wielding a compressed air gun at a Habitat for Humanity bill sponsored by the National Bar Association. This came as no surprise to those of us who know her because Judge McClendon is also a championship marksman. Judge McClendon, it's my pleasure to welcome you to the podium.
Thank you, and good morning to the members of the Board of Trust, esteemed Hope, the esteemed faculty members that are very impressive, families, and especially the graduates of the Nashville School of Law. When the Dean asked me to be the keynote speaker, I was just very humbled, kind of impressed with myself, and thought how wise he was to ask me. And then it occurred to me, while we all know what a keynote speaker means, we don't really know what it really means. Keynote. So I went even, my insecurity caused me to open up a dictionary, a hardbound dictionary that I used in college. Well, no one uses books anymore, it seems, and mine hit gray on the spine where I had used it so much, I couldn't find it. And probably the last time I used it or saw it was when I put the gray duct tape on it. But, so I got out my Google smartphone and researched keynote speaker for commencement. Google informed me that keynote means a prevailing tone or central theme, or the note on which a key is played. Commencement means the start. So I'm here to share with you some thoughts to consider as you commence or start the rest of your life. You are, as I stand here, all winners. You are each persons who, against the odds, identified a dream of studying law, graduating, and going out in the world with that knowledge. The fact that you had that dream, pursued it, and attained that dream means you have set yourself apart from others who say they want to do something or they tried. You have thought about and identified as wanting something aspirational, and you pursued it and have been successful. Most of you, I suspect, have achieved this dream while working, paying bills, and fulfilling other responsibilities to family members and otherwise. Unlike persons who go to law school immediately after college, typically with financial assistance from family members, you have shouldered responsibility alone or with your significant others. In my mind, you're not just winners. You have attained your dream of graduating from law school and accomplished that dream despite pressures and responsibilities that come with age. And unlike those who went straight through college to and through law school, you have demonstrated a quality and character that those others do not have. As Mary Wright Edelman said of the Defense League, hard work, persistence, and initiative are still the non-magic carpets to success for most of us, as it has been for you and shall be as you go forth in life. So we've now determined you are winners and you've demonstrated you have character in the face of adversity. Now what is left but just eight of my life observations to help you become wise as well. I have to put on my glasses for this. I had LASIK, but this is the end result of LASIK. Rule 1, if you are self-employed, it doesn't matter if it's in law, because you can use your law degree for any number of things, not just practicing law. Keep your monthly overhead low initially. Rule 2, if you are self-employed and have a flush month, do not go out and buy something that requires you to pay monthly after that. Remember Rule 1, feast and famine, keep your overhead low. So put that money away and don't count that money until you have it in hand and you're certain not going to file bankruptcy and it's going to be pulled in as a preference. Mr. Hildebrand understands that. Professor Hildebrand. Beware of older retirement age attorneys that associate on a case that is beyond your expertise alone. Why? I had one do that on my third year of practice. It was a first-degree murder case. He took half the retainer and retired. So there I was with a first-degree murder case, my third year of practice, and I went up against two district attorneys, assistant district attorneys. I ended up, my defense was, yeah, he did it, I stuck the dude, and he wanted me to claim self-defense. And we ended up with second degree in 7 years with 50% police eligibility date. So it was actually a success, but it was so stressful. So kind of be aware of those older attorneys that are facing retirement age. Seek and find out mentors. You need those mentors. Participate in your bar association. I did not, because I had an office out on Nashville Road, and there was always people to meet, money to make, and I thought, I can't afford to do that. It was a big mistake. It made my practicing law much more stressful than it needed to be. There are a number of people out there that are glad to give you advice, including myself. I'm on my office. I'm on the 5th floor of the historic courthouse. Remember your bar association. You can hook up with mentoring. Remember your family here at the Nashville School of Law. They all want you to succeed. Ask questions. Now, if you have a question about the ethics of anything, what I suggest you do, call the Board of Professional Responsibility and ask them how to handle the situation. They will write down that you called, what the facts are, and the advice given, and that can come in handy later. Rule 6, and I swear there's only 3 more. Always introduce yourself to the court. Why? While I remember faces, I am multitasking when I'm up on the bench, and I often forget names. So you are helping me or any judge when you introduce yourself. And introduce yourself every time you speak, even if it's on the same docket. And the first time you say it, Your Honor, may it please the court, my name is so-and-so, and I represent Mr. So-and-so. Now the next time it might be another time, you just say, Your Honor, Mark Fishburne here. And then you think, well, why am I doing this? Well, you've got to remember, you're out there making a living, practicing law. You've got an audience behind you. You're not just helping the judge, you are spreading your name, you're advertising. And I've had people come up to me after I've done and represented someone in court. They retain me, and the ultimate compliment is when an adversary approaches you for another matter and says, I want you on my side this time. So get your name out there every chance you can. And this part is a little bit longer, but it's Rule 7. Allow people to underestimate you. Opponents will try to intimidate you in any manner possible to get the upper hand. It is always to your advantage to be underestimated. Let them think that they are superior to you. Around, once again, my 3rd year of practice, I had a firm of 1, me, with an office out on Nowensville Road. There was a big firm attorney representing a large car dealership on a lawsuit that I had brought under the Lemon Law. The issue was the repeated failure of the brakes on this car. The part that is really kind of too funny to be true, but the make and model of the car was a Yugo. You can probably guess the rest of it. Of course, I had great fun taunting opposing counsel with, you go here, you go there, our brakes don't work anywhere. Well, in an attempt to be reasonable, we had the Yugo dealership one last time attempt to fix the brakes on the car. This woman had bought this for her children. It was crucial. She was making monthly payments. It was devastating for her life. After several days, the opposing attorney called me and said, we have a problem. What could the problem be, I think? Opposing counsel says, well, a mechanic worked on the Yugo, repaired it, took it out for a test drive, and I'll probably guess the rest. It wrecked. The brakes failed. The gentleman, the mechanic, was not injured, but I'm still thinking in my head, you go here, you go there. Without brakes, you can go anywhere. But no, they had to argue about the damages. And as you know, as NSL graduates, there's 2 things to a lawsuit. You have to prove your theory of recovery, which a lot of times is easy, and then you have to prove your damages. At this point, it occurred to me I'm being disrespected by this larger firm attorney, and so I decided I'd play back. What I did is I mentioned just one time that I might need an expert to testify as to the cost required to establish damages. Several weeks later, the day before court, the big firm attorney called and said, hey, you don't have an expert. You're kaput. Well, as you all know, there are more than one way to settle or to establish your damages on personal property. Among those other ways, the owner can simply testify as the pre-collision value and the post-collision value. I reminded my adversary of that fact. We settled the case 30 minutes later. I was underestimated and assumptions were made, probably based on where my office was located, and they were incorrect. My last rule, be unflappable. In court and otherwise in life, things will often happen that you do not expect. The judge might rule a way that you assumed was a non-issue, and you hadn't prepared to deal with the case without that fact having been established. Think on your feet. Envision yourself to be like the inflatable toy clown that is weighted on the bottom that you hit. They go down, but they pop right back up. Envision yourself as being that toy, and no matter how hard you're hit, you can get knocked down, but you will come back up. In other words, failure is a part of success. In 1923, Babe Ruth set the record for the most home runs in a season while striking out more than any other major league player. So now that I've finished with some of my rules, I want to impart on you a few thoughts to consider before I conclude. You now have knowledge that sets you apart. That knowledge is power. You are privileged to have that power. Even though you have worked to attain this goal, knowledge is a privilege. And I know you're probably tired of learning a multitude of Latin words and phrases over the past 4 years, but there is one more phrase that I want you to remember. Noblesse oblige. This is the inferred responsibility of privileged persons to act with generosity and nobility towards those who are less privileged. Many equate this phrase with the responsibility of persons having money with those who do not. No. Your privilege is that of having knowledge. You now have the privilege and the ability to go forward, give a voice to those who cannot speak eloquently about their circumstances. You have the ability to hear and give a voice to those who are not used to being heard. And I assure you, it is rewarding. I will now end this keynote on this note. Please remember you are a winner. You have demonstrated the character to succeed despite adversity, and as you commence your lives and succeed, because you will succeed. Remember, noblesse oblige. Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you again for joining us today, and I will hope you will accept this small present. The Dean's Certificate of Recognition is awarded to the graduating students completing the school's pro bono service program. This year we recognize Melissa Grimes, Christy Holt, and Heather Michelle, who have earned recognition as law students for justice by the Tennessee Supreme Court. Receiving the Dean's Certificate of Excellence for recording the most pro bono hours in our pro bono initiative is Heather Michelle. Ms. Michelle, if you'll stand and be ready. The Honorable Society of Cooper's Inn is comprised of graduates who have distinguished themselves in their studies by graduating in the top 10% of their class. I request that each inductee stand to be recognized and remain standing when I call your name. John W. Ayers, Joshua Drew Clements, Ryan Todd Miller, Mary Lee Charlotte, Alexander James Starr, and Ronald Rose King. Thank you. The Founders Award is given to the student who has earned the highest overall grade point average in the graduating class. Be it known that this year's Founders Award recipient is Mary Lee Charlotte. Ladies and gentlemen of the Cooper Term graduating class of 2019, will you please stand? By the authority vested in me as the 5th Dean of the Nashville School of Law, I hereby declare that each of these graduates are hereby awarded the degree of Doctor of Jurisprudence this 25th day of May, 2019. Congratulations to you all.
Desiree Taylor Anderson. John W. Ayers. Courtney Cale Benjamin. Eric Wayne Benton. Jerry Lynn Blythe, Jr. Richard Allen Bowe, Jr. Anthony Thomas Brandy. William Dean Bratcher. Anthony Dylan Bruner. Joshua Dwayne Cantrell. Jonathan Hudson Carroll. Amanda Howell Castillo. Ronald Cook Kate. Joshua Drew Clements. Nora Dawn Marzouk Elshar. Lauren G. Erb. Bryson Nichols Eubanks. Hunter Thomas Evans. Christopher R. Francescan. Lauren Elizabeth Gaudioso. Galen Sophia Gray. Melissa Annette Grimes. William Ernest Ronis. Charlton Malloy Guffey. Cindy E. Harris. Peter J. Harris. Heath Harwell Bowe. Joshua Daniel Hatcher. Kathy Lauren Holland. Christy Akins Holt. Brian Alexander Horwitz. Kayla Marie Orvat. James Lee Jarman III. Fred Johnson. Andrew C. Kim. Spencer Jared Lambert. Kenneth Richard Lavelle. Paul C. Marsh. Heather Marie Michelle. Ryan Todd Miller.
Go Rhino!
Lamar Dante Moore. Jordan Lane Morgan. Sean Nicholas Murphy. Jason Ross Neighbors. Tushar Arvind Pardoon. Holly Nicole Harrigan. Joshua Lee Phillips. Christina M. Reed. Mary Jessica Rigsby. Mark Andrew Rutherford. Mary Lee Charlotte. Courtney Deanna Seacrest. Rhonda G. Spivey. Kyle Heston Stack. Alexander James Starr. Donald Landis Turner. Jesse Heath Walker. Randy S. Ward. Roger D. Wainick. Lacey Michelle Webb. Timothy Joseph Webby.
Let's all give the graduating class. Part of that congratulations is for your ability to do calisthenics in front of a room of 1,000 people. Very, very graceful, all of you. We also want to thank our good friend and faculty member David Hudson for getting the names just right. We worry that we're going to lose him to the predators one of these days. We don't know. Earlier in this ceremony, it was my privilege to introduce you to our distinguished faculty. These 38 lawyers and judges are second to none and are viewed by the bench and bar of Tennessee as one of our school's most valuable assets. In his 1881 masterpiece, The Common Law, Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes observed, quote, "The life of the law has not been logic, it has been experience." Our professors bring their unique blend of academic excellence and experience to their students. They do not simply teach the law, they apply it and live it. Thus, as it has been for over 100 years, today's leaders at the bench and bar continue to teach tomorrow's lawyers at the Nashville School of Law. We are indeed fortunate this morning that Bill Harbison has agreed to speak on behalf of the faculty during this ceremony. To say that the law courses through his veins would be an understatement. He is the son and grandson of a lawyer. His father was a lawyer and judge who is without peer in Tennessee in terms of the life of Tennessee law. While his father still casts a long shadow, Bill now casts a long shadow of his own. His son Jay, who joined the bar in 2014, need look no further than his father and grandfather and great-grandfather for models of civility, excellence, and professionalism in the practice of law. Bill is a Phi Beta graduate of the University of North Carolina, a cum laude graduate of Harvard Law School. He has made his professional home in Nashville and has practiced continually in the same firm, originally O'Hare, Sherrard, and Rowe, now Sherrard, Rowe, Voigt, and Harbison. For decades, he has been listed in the best lawyers of America under the categories of bet the company litigation, commercial litigation, trust and estates litigation, elder law, and trust and estates. Closer to home, he makes regular appearances in the Nashville Business Journal Best of the Bar list and Nashville's Top 50 Lawyers. Bill has also put his considerable legal skills to good use in the social justice arena. Among his significant cases are Villegas versus Metro Government, involving an undocumented pregnant woman shackled to a hospital bed while giving birth. The Georgia O'Keeffe Foundation versus Fisk University, involving Fisk University's sale of paintings in the Alfred Stieglitz collection to the Crystal Bridges Museum of American Art in Bentonville, Arkansas. And George versus Haslam, involving the manner in which votes to amend the Tennessee Constitution should be counted. But perhaps Bill's most celebrated social justice case is Tanco versus Passman, involving the right of a same-sex couple to have their out-of-state marriage recognized in Tennessee. This case was one of 4 cases consolidated and decided by the United States Supreme Court in Obergefell versus Hodges. For his work in that case, Bill was recognized as Nashvillian of the Year in 2015, and has also received the ACLU's Bill of Rights Award. Bill and his co-author Phyllis Kramer have written a book, The Fight for Marriage, offering their unique perspectives on this litigation. During his career, Bill has served as president of the Nashville and Tennessee Bar Associations. He is a fellow in the Nashville, Tennessee, and American Bar Foundations, and like his father before him, he serves on the Tennessee Supreme Court's Board of Law Examiners. In addition to all these commitments, Bill has been our school's contracts professor since 2005. His students speak of him with the same respect that we used when talking about his father 50 years ago. Today, we have a very strong first-year faculty, and there is no better model for first-year students of a truly professional lawyer than Bill Hardison. Bill, thank you for representing the faculty today.
Well, thank you, Dean Cook. I hardly know what to say after that, but it is truly a pleasure to be here this morning with this class. Dean Cook, members of the board, fellow faculty, guests, and most especially the class of 2019, congratulations. This is a day for you and your families to remember always, and it marks a significant milestone in all of your lives. As you prepare to graduate and embark on new careers where you will undoubtedly use your law degrees to great advantage, I want to take you back to the beginning of your journey, to your first year of law school. Many of us here in the room today were once new law students as well, and I am no exception. In thinking about what I might offer you today, I could not help but go back to my own beginnings as a law student. The year was 1977, and 2 works of literature that were really intimidating had recently come out and would shape how I felt about starting law school. The first was James Bridges' book, The Paper Chase, which was released as a movie in 1973. It starred Timothy Bottoms as a first-year law student and the great John Houseman as his brilliant, intimidating, and scary contracts professor, aptly named Kingsfield. Houseman won an Academy Award for that performance. More about him in a moment. The second book was the book 1L by Scott Turow. It was released in 1977, the year in which I started law school, and it documented the recent experience of the author in a thinly veiled, diary-like presentation of his first year of law school. As I was entering the first year, Scott Turow was entering his third year, so the book had just come out. My wonderful and supportive parents, thinking they were doing me a favor, gave me a copy of the book over the summer. Both The Paper Chase and 1L emphasize the main character's course in contracts as a central component of the stories. What is it about contract law that drew the attention of the 2 authors? Hold that thought for a moment as well. Both of the stories present the law school experience through the eyes of a first-year student who does not really know what to expect. The beginning of the paper chase, the main character, who is known as James Hart, starts his first year in a very bad way. In his contracts law course with Professor Kingsfield, he assumes the first class will be an outline of the course for the coming year. When Kingsfield immediately delves into the material using the Socratic Method, sometimes called Socrates gone mad, Hart is totally unprepared and feels so utterly humiliated that after class, he throws up in the bathroom. In 1L, Scott Turow similarly emphasizes his contracts professor, whom he calls Professor Perini, as a source of intimidation and fear. In fact, the first chapter of the book is called Meeting My Enemy, one of whom is presumably Perini. Both books discuss study groups, exams, romance, and the books are loosely based on the character of the contracts professor, who was based on a real-life person. His name was Clark Weiss, and now I'm coming to the personal part of my story. I'm fortunate to say that Professor Weiss was my contracts professor, and he was indeed a skilled proponent of the Socratic Method. In his first class, Professor Weiss told us that he would teach us to think like a lawyer. He never directly told us what that phrase meant, but I believe that over the course of a year, he showed us by example. On the surface, the paper chase and 1L present a pretty negative image of what it means to think like a lawyer. The Socratic Method is depicted in both books as a source of intimidation and embarrassment. The contracts professor is depicted as pretty much a villain. And often to the public, thinking like a lawyer may mean being clever or tricky, parsing words and sentences in ways that distort their meaning. In To Kill a Mockingbird, Bob Ewell says to the court and to the jury in a moment of frustration, "You've got to watch tricky lawyers like Atticus Finch." And so to a lot of folks, thinking like a lawyer might not seem at first like such a good thing. But in reflecting on my experience with Clark Weiss, the real-life Professor Kingsfield, I know there is much more to thinking like a lawyer than being tricky and clever. To me, three aspects of that phrase stand out. The first thing Professor Weiss taught his class was to have a strong sense of empathy. He demonstrated to us through the Socratic Method that there is more than one way of looking at a problem. As someone once said, even a thin pancake has two sides. And budding lawyers learn to see that disputes always involve two or more points of view. The ability to empathize and to understand and appreciate opposing points of view is one aspect of thinking like a lawyer. A second aspect of thinking like a lawyer is idealism. This can take many forms. One of them is to find principled ways to argue and shape legal rules so that they come ever closer to achieving the ideal of justice. All of the cases we read in law school are about finding a just and hopefully a principled result that builds on precedent and does not do violence to closely held ideals. Scott Turow in 1L desperately wants to cling to his sense of right and wrong and not to let them get lost in the pressures of law school. I once heard a revered Nashville lawyer, Charlie Warfield, give a speech in which he urged lawyers at some point in their career to take on a lost cause. It is good advice. That is something to remember from law school and to try never to forget. Idealism. It's a big part of why you went to law school in the first place. The third aspect of thinking like a lawyer is compassion. Compassion and forgiveness do have an important, even a huge place in the life of a lawyer. We can see the importance of compassion in learned judges who are able to show mercy for a party who may be in the wrong, but who does not deserve penalties that are overly harsh. As Judge Cardozo said in Jacob and Youngs versus Kent, I love his language, the willful transgressor must accept the penalty of his transgression, but the transgressor whose default is unintentional and trivial may hope for mercy if he will offer atonement for his wrong. Law practice is sometimes a tough profession. It's called in our tradition an adversarial system of justice. Being able to have compassion for an opponent or an opposing lawyer is a critical part of lasting happily for a long time in the profession. Remember how to forgive. In the end, Professor Weiss was really nothing like Professor Kingsfield or Professor Greene in those works of fiction that I saw and read before law school. Yes, he was good at the Socratic Method, but all of us who had him as a professor learned that he was down to earth, humble, and even approachable. He made it a point to eat lunch in the law school cafeteria so that he could sit with students and get to know them. He was a great example of civility. Professor Weiss died in 2007 at age 95. A memorial in Harvard Law Today said, "He was Kingsfield, but so much more." Harvard Law School has lost a legend. Many thousands of its graduates have lost the finest teacher they ever had, and all of us have lost a friend, said Dean Elena Kagan, now Supreme Court Justice Kagan. No one cared more deeply about great teaching, and no one communicated more effectively to his students. He insisted on excellence, but always with a twinkle in his eye. He was Kingsfield, but also so much more than Kingsfield, a wonderfully generous and caring human being. The Kingsfields and Perinis of the world are fun to watch in a movie or read about in a book, but I think it's the Clark Weisses of the world whom you remember. I told you we would come back to the courses in contract law that figure in both of those books. Perhaps in the paper chase and one day all the courses in contracts were central because contracts are private orderings of relationships with the force of law behind them. You have to understand people and relationships to understand contracts. You have all learned to think like a lawyer. To my mind, this is a very good thing. I wish for all of you every success and happiness in the profession, and I hope that empathy, idealism, and compassion are part of each of your lives. Congratulations again. Thank you.
As you might imagine, each of today's 62 graduates could recount their experiences as students at the Nashville School of Law in different ways and in different voices. Each graduate's story is worth telling, but time constraints permit only one to speak on behalf of the class. Ms. Mary Charlotte has been requested to provide some brief parting words on behalf of her classmates. Ms. Charlotte, the podium is yours.
I'm extremely honored to be here today, not only to be graduating with all you wonderful people, but to have the special opportunity to speak to you as well. I know we're all getting a little antsy and are anxious to bust out those doors and enjoy what was going to be a hot but very fun day. But I've got a few messages for you, and I think David Hudson will appreciate it. I did organize this using headings and subheadings when I structured it, so it should stay on point. So I'm going to speak to my fellow graduates first. When I was researching to do this speech, other than being anxious about it, you see a lot of graduation speeches trying to inspire you to go on and go out and do great things, to run out the doors with the drive to help those that need helping, advocate for those who need advocating, and help people through some of the most difficult parts of their lives. Typically a good time to quote "Oh, the Places You'll Go" by Dr. Seuss. But I very quickly realized that this group does not need inspiring. I've been personally inspired by so many of you, and I have absolutely no doubt you're going to continue forward in Tennessee and do absolutely wonderful things. I could spend my entire time up here detailing all of the challenges and triumphs some of our classmates have endured in their time at NSL. But I've opted to offer some thoughts that will hopefully keep you grounded. And it's something I've had to remind myself of frequently lately. So the days and weeks ahead of us, as you know, are going to be stressful. I know as soon as we all walk out this door, we're probably already thinking about the bar exam. Don't. Today is for celebrating our graduation, regardless of what other tasks lay ahead of us. We have, being here today right now, be with your family. They're here for you. They have sacrificed so much to be here and help you graduate today. Take the time to be with them, enjoy it, be present, celebrate. You definitely earned it. So now I have a brief message to the school. When I found out Mr. Harbison was speaking today, I thought it was unbelievably fitting because on August 3rd, 2015, in the auditorium at NSL, Bill Harbison gave us our very first law school lecture. And on a day that was full of anticipation and anxiety, his calm and kind words assured us that law school would be difficult, but that it would ultimately be one of the most rewarding endeavors we will ever pursue. And today he addresses us as graduates with the same demeanor, and we are so grateful not only for his words, but the example he sets. His humility and kindness are critical to the effective practice of law, and I think it's one of the many reasons Mr. Harbison has been so successful. But Mr. Harbison is just one of the many, many, many professors who have molded and guided us to be here today. From Judge Davidson's mixing bowl and his hatred of cats, to Kimberly Reed Bracey yelling "Estoppel" at us pretty frequently during our 4L year. Chuck, he liked to yell at us to make sure we remember to use our common sense and stop thinking too much like a lawyer. Looking back at the professors, I think we witnessed some of the most patient individuals possible. Our class, as you can tell, is pretty vibrant, full of personality, and I think we may have tested your limits a few times. In fact, I know one student in particular, who will remain unnamed, probably drove some of you mad. But you keep coming back. The professors in NSL keep showing up. You work day jobs in one of the most stressful and high-paced professions, but you still show up with a smile and answer all of our endless questions, except maybe that one student's questions. People tend to tell them to stop. But without NSL and all of the wonderful faculty here, I know many of us would not have been able to attend law school. We are forever grateful to each and every one of you, and hope to see you out in the world. So last, I'm going to speak to all the family and friends in the room today. Congratulations are due to you as well, because now you have an attorney in the family that you'll likely be able to pester for free legal advice. Some advanced warning though, our answer to 99% of the questions will involve some variation of "it depends." So, don't expect a lot up front, but in all honesty, thank you cannot come close to expressing the magnitude that we all have for everyone here supporting us today. Life didn't stop because we decided to get crazy and go to law school. As students, we've had divorces, marriages, funerals, we've had babies born, even a set of twins. We've had professional setbacks as students and triumphs. We've cried, stressed, complained, frequently questioned our sanity. And you all have been our biggest cheerleaders through all of this, even when we try to explain the rule against perpetuities to you. I know my husband, Ray, has been my biggest cheerleader, and there's absolutely no way I could have attended law school without his dedication, his support, and his patience. And very last, but certainly not least, I want to thank all of the children in the room today. You weren't necessarily consulted before Mom or Dad went to law school, and you've had to make a lot of sacrifices. I know my kids have had to miss after-school activities. They've had to deal with Mom studying all weekend. Family vacations have been postponed. And I know in my house, at least one Thanksgiving was quite boring thanks to a constitutional law midterm we had the following Monday. But it's worth it. So we appreciate you. We've been grumpy and tired and sometimes so overwhelmed that you consoled us. I know my children sat next to me when I studied. One attended with me on rare occasion when I had to attend class. And you celebrated us with us when our grades posted. I hope you don't just remember today as a day when your mom or dad did something pretty cool, but it's a day that you helped them achieve. So all the kids out there, thank you. So, in closing, I have absolutely no doubt in my mind that everyone here, we're going to go out and do wonderful things. I'm absolutely, truly, genuinely honored to be included in the class, the Nashville School of Law class of 2019. Cheers and congratulations.
Thank you, Ms. Charlotte. As this ceremony draws to a close, and before you bust out the back door, I hope you'll permit me just to add a few closing words of my own. Now, this is a moment of great consequences for the men and women who have been awarded their JD degrees today. All this music, the marching, and the medieval robes, and this ceremony is meant to mark a single, decisive moment of transition in their lives. You, the members of the class of 2019, are the true believers among us today. The greatness of human beings is not so much their power to remake the world, but it's the power to remake themselves. And this is precisely what you have done. And it is this accomplishment that we celebrate. We are living today in uncertain times. The rule of law and the very foundations of our government are under assault from without and within. The traditional norms of mutual tolerance and institutional forbearance have been replaced by partisanship and distrust. The principles of egalitarianism, civility, the love of freedom, and the shared purpose that characterized mid-20th century democracy in America are withering. Nobel Prize-winning Irish poet William Butler Yeats lived through similar times immediately following World War I. The Easter Rising in Ireland, the Russian Revolution, the rise of fascism, and the political decay in Europe ruptured traditional values and eroded the collective sense of purpose. There was a feeling that the old rules no longer applied and there was nothing to replace them. The first stanza of The Second Coming, published in 1920, sounds like it could have been written today. Yeats wrote, "Things fall apart. The center cannot hold. Mere anarchy is loosed upon the world. The blood-dimmed tide is loosed, and everywhere the ceremony of innocence is drowned. The best lack all conviction, while the worst are filled with passionate intensity." It is precisely in times like these that lawyers are needed the most. Lawyers are not mercenaries and hired guns. Lawyers defend the Constitution and the rule of law. Lawyers are the guardians of our liberties. Lawyers advocate for just causes, no matter how unpopular. Lawyers are the protectors of the powerless, and lawyers are the wise counselors of our society. It was an appellate lawyer from Virginia that wrote the Declaration of Independence. It was a trial lawyer from Illinois that issued the Emancipation Proclamation. It was a corporate lawyer from New York who led this country through the dark days of the Depression and the Second World War. And it was two good old country lawyers from Huntsville, Tennessee and Morganton, North Carolina, who established that no person, not even the President of the United States, is above the law. Over a century ago, Justice Louis Brandeis told the Harvard Ethical Society, quote, "There is a call upon the legal profession to do great things for this country. This call still rings true today. Today, more than ever, our communities need lawyers who are wise, courageous, and creative. Even if you do not engage in the traditional practice of law, your legal training equips you to resolve disputes rationally and fairly without resorting to force, brutality, or trickery. You are at the threshold of entering a noble profession, and you have been chosen to become leaders in your communities. I am confident that each of you will rise to that challenge, and with these thoughts, members of the 2019 graduating class, you have my congratulations and best wishes. Please rise for the benediction delivered by Ms. Christie.
I want to also offer my heartfelt congratulations to my fellow classmates. Thank you for enduring this journey with me. And I also want to give a congratulations to everyone in this room. As we have noted, you are definitely a part of our journey. So if you would please bow your heads with me. Dear Lord, today I bring our graduation class before you, asking you to keep your hand of protection upon us. Please guide our steps in the days ahead as we embark on this new journey. Grant us the wisdom to make wise decisions according to your will, and may the road before us be paved with joyous opportunities that bring honor and glory to you. May grace, mercy, and peace from God the Father and Christ Jesus our Lord follow us all. Amen.